Shalom Haverim, and hello friends. It's good to see you on this Sunday morning, or whenever it is you're watching. I know that many of you, like me, you like to sing, and I sing a lot. I don't like to sing in public, but when I'm at home, I let it flow freely, maybe a little too freely. I sing a lot, and I realize that right now that's maybe not the best thing because I'm not the only one in my home. Ever since COVID-19 hit, my family has been spending a lot more time at home, my wife and kids. They're always around. So they have to put up with my singing. Now this week I had an earworm, and you know an earworm is when you get that song in your head, you can't get rid of it. The earworm that I was dealing with was I'm a Believer by the Monkees. So I got that song in my head, I kept singing, if it's in my head, it's gonna come out my mouth. Random times throughout the day, over and over again, singing this song, I'm a Believer by the Monkees. After a while, my wife informed me that I needed to stop because it was getting annoying. At first I didn't believe her, I thought she was joking, but then I saw her face. Okay, so if you didn't get that, the next line from the song is, no, I'm a believer. Anyways, I hope that you too are a believer, not a believer that you are annoying to your family or friends, but a believer in the power of our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So since the gyms have been closed for the last 6 months or so, many of us are finding other ways to be active, other things to do to try to maintain some sort of physical activity and some sort of decent health routine. But maybe like me, you're running a lot more. I don't usually run through the summer. It gets too hot. And one of the things that I do really well, I don't do many things well, but one of the things I do well is I sweat with the best of them. So summer's not usually the time that I put on the most miles, but this year, absolutely, I've been racking them up. Now, just this morning, I was running at Gypsy Hill Park, which is just down the road from where we live. And if you don't know Gypsy Hill Park, it's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the best kept parks that I've ever been to. It's a couple hundred acres and it's gorgeous. Wonderful treasure here in the city of Stanton. So I'm there making my laps around the park and I've got my headphones on and I'm jamming out to Chumbawamba. I can relate with Chumbawamba because I too get knocked down, but I get up again. And I'm making these laps and I'm singing along as I run around the track and I just realized that I'm missing something. So I take my headphones off and as I'm running, I take that opportunity to listen to the birds in the trees. I run past the duck pond and I listen to the ducks and the geese squawking about. And I run past the trees where the squirrels are what do squirrels do? They're chirping, they're cracking the peanuts that people give to them. They're making that noise that squirrels make. I don't even know what to call that. Now you see, there's definitely a place for music, and I have an appreciation for music. It's very motivating and uplifting if you listen to the right songs. But I realize that when I'm listening to music, sometimes I'm missing an opportunity to appreciate the beauty of God's creation around me and to recognize God's presence with me. Now, our text for this morning comes to us from Exodus chapter 3. This is the story of Moses and the burning bush. So the story goes like this. Moses was out tending his father-in-law's herd of sheep, and he's moving them from one place to the next. And he's taking the sheep to a place called Mount Horeb. And Horeb is a Hebrew word which simply means wasteland. It can also be used as a verb, which means to dry out completely and to lay waste. So if you think of Horeb, think of horrible. This is kind of a desert land. It's probably at work for him to find something for the sheep to eat as they're moving around this wasteland. And as Moses passes through this wasteland, he noticed something off in a distance. He sees a burning bush. Now, again, this was the desert. There were probably burning bushes from time to time, not a big deal. But the thing that was different about this one is this bush did not burn up. It was not consumed by the fire. So Moses goes to check it out, and he realizes this is something altogether different. God was speaking to Moses through this burning bush, and Moses audibly heard God speak to him. And God says to Moses, "Moses, take off your shoes, for you are standing on holy ground." So this ground that had been called a wasteland, Horeb, this dry, desolate place, God said, is holy. And maybe you've heard pastors preach on this, or maybe you've even seen them do this on a regular basis. I hear there's pastors that every week, whenever they preach, they first take off their shoes. And this is the shoe that I wore here this morning. My family's probably embarrassed to see my Croc. Probably should have washed that before I showed it to you. But anyways, preachers will take off their shoes whenever they preach because this is holy ground upon which they stand. But I ask the question, going back to this text, when did the ground become holy? Did it become holy when God spoke to Moses? Did it become holy when God showed up? Well, I don't think that's the case. The Psalms tell us that there is no place that we can go that God is not. So God was already there. Did the place become holy when Moses recognized God's presence? I'm not sure. That puts a lot of power upon the person, upon Moses. I don't think that the ground became holy just because Moses recognized it. You know what I think is that ground always was holy. Moses was just now seeing it. Now, there's a pastor that wrote on this subject a number of years ago, and I think it's helpful to look at what he said. This pastor wrote, "What if the bush was always burning? And what if this was just the first time Moses took the time to slow down and notice something different about it?" It could be that Moses had passed by that spot many times before, and maybe he's seen many burning bushes in his past, but he never took the time to question what's going on here. Is this not being consumed? Is something different about this spot? So the pastor says, maybe the bush was always burning. Maybe the ground was always holy. And maybe, just maybe, God is always with us. And this pastor says, if that's the case, it's our job to train our eyes to look for the burning bushes around us. So I come back to shoes, and I realize that I walk a lot faster when I'm wearing shoes. I go back to my memories of my childhood and growing up and running around in the front yard barefoot and maybe throwing the ball back and forth to my brothers. And all at once I have to go across the driveway to pick up a ball that sailed a little wide, surely because they threw it poorly to me, not because I missed the pass or anything like that. But I'm walking across the driveway, and you can run as fast as you can along the grass, and you get to this driveway, and what do? You slow down if you're barefoot, because those rocks are a little pointy and they hurt. I walk faster when I'm wearing shoes. I run faster. I'm sure I've never tried running barefoot very far, but I'm sure I run faster when I'm wearing shoes. But if this ground that we walk upon is the place where God always is, then maybe it is holy ground. And maybe that thin piece of rubber is something that keeps us from recognizing God's presence with us at all times. No, I'm not saying you have to go barefoot all the time, but I do think it's helpful for us to slow down. Tomorrow I'm actually going on a hike on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I'm going to do my best to slow down. I'm not going to take my headphones along with me. I'm going to try to listen to the birds in the trees and the chipmunks and the squirrels, and listen out for rattlesnakes too while I'm there, just to be safe. To take the time to listen and to look and to see the beauty of God's creation. To watch for burning bushes that may have been there the whole time. I'm going to take that time to appreciate the presence of a good friend who's walking with me, side by side, step by step, looking for the presence of God among us. I hope that you too will take this challenge to slow down, to recognize the burning bushes that are all around us, to recognize that God's presence is always with us, and the land that we walk upon is always holy ground because God is with us. All right, friends, I'm going to encourage you this week to slow down and feel free to take your shoes off and walk around barefoot. See you next week.